Mark and Rebecca Spencer are about to learn the hard way.
It was about 5 or 6 seconds of sheer terror.
Their dream house turns into a nightmare when they discover its horrific past.
Hearing all those voices just really changed my life.
There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey everybody, it's episode 76, and guess who's back?
I'm back.
Hey, yay! Aw, I missed you so much.
Yeah. So I go back to Mississippi, you know what I mean? And I'm like, man, why did I ever leave this place? This is pretty cool. And then like 3 days later, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. That's why.
Poor Mississippi.
No, Mississippi's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing like Florida though.
No.
And it looks like my dad's pulled through. He had a couple little setbacks, but looks like he made it. So it's pretty good. They had to keep him under for nearly 7 days.
That's gotta be pretty freaky.
Yeah, well, he had a major heart attack the night before the surgery.
Right,
So he had I think it's called cardiographic shock or cardiogenic shock. I don't remember. I think it's cardiographic shock, which is his heart had been starved of oxygen. So they did the quadruple bypass on him, and they kept him down for like 7 days.
Yeah, because
his heart was so weak.
Yeah, because Tom was going to come back almost a week before you actually did come back, but then after that happened, he's like, well, they're going to keep him under, so I have to stay here longer because he's not even awake.
So they kept him under for nearly a week, and then when he came to, they put him in recovery, but his kidneys started to fail.
Yeah.
Because, he had been asleep for so long, But anyway, they put him back on dialysis, and eventually his kidneys kind of came back. So
yeah.
So I think he's off dialysis now. He's going to go into recovery, but it could be long term. He might be in there for a month, but he'll make.
He's tough and stubborn.
Yeah.
They had to tie him down because he kept pulling
pulling stuff out.
All of the stuff out of his arms because he was just going stir crazy.
He's 72 years old, Mississippi. He was born drinking bacon grease, smoking 2 packs a day since he was 10.
Yeah.
All right. Dude's lucky to be alive.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And yours, as soon as he got home, we're recording this on Monday, but he got home on Friday night. And he was telling me all the stories about his dad in the hospital. And you were just making me laugh because you were doing your dad's voice.
Yeah.
And how he had, he had the thing in his mouth, so he was having a hard time talking.
Yeah.
So when he wanted something, he would just, make a...
Button!
Yeah.
Button!
Like when he wanted the bed to go up and down.
Yeah, he wanted if the bed was up, he wanted to go down. And if it was down, he wanted to go up. So he got tired of just saying, raise me up and said, he could go, button! Tea!
Coke.
She don't believe it. He asked for Coca-Cola, and she goes, we can't give you Coca-Cola. And I said, they wouldn't give you Coca-Cola. They go, no, I don't believe it. They don't believe it. Yeah. They don't believe in the healing power of Coca-Cola? No. Just funny. He was a little bit out of it, and then he started to go into what they call recovery room psychosis.
Which,
where they
understandable.
Start going fucking crazy, trying to pull things out.
Yeah, because he can't move. I mean, he's got all that stuff.
He said, I gotta get back to my truck. I'll be all right if I just get back to my truck.
Yeah, and he started pulling everything out.
Yeah. Oh, man. But he's evidently all right now.
Yeah, so he's going to be in the hospital a while longer, but...
Right, but he won't have all that stuff hooked up to him.
But yeah, he'll be in the regular hospital, not in the ICU.
Okay, let's start the show.
All right, so let's see. So the first thing we're going to do, the main part of the show, since some people asked, when are you guys going to do another episode of A Haunting? So
we're going to do it today.
We're going to do it today, so hooray.
Going to do a haunting episode.
Just because I was going to do it last week, but when I thought you were coming back, but you weren't back, so we didn't do it. So I'll save it for when you come back.
A lot of people love when we do haunting episodes. Other people don't get it because they didn't see the episode that we're talking about. Usually we're kind of busting on the show.
Yeah.
Pointing out stuff that was cool or stuff that was funny. This one we're going to kind of do it a little bit straight because this is a pretty interesting case.
Well, and this too, I like this one because we can talk about the episode of A Haunting, but this house, the Allen house, is a very famous haunted house. So it's been on a bunch of different shows. It's had a bunch of different paranormal investigators there. So there's a lot of other information about it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of documentation, and the claims aren't all that wild, really. They're seeing apparitions and hearing voices.
Yeah. And I should say too that the episode of A Haunting came out, I think, in 2012. It was season 5. Now, they also did the same story on Paranormal Witness about a year later. But the Paranormal Witness episode had a bunch of stuff that wasn't on the episode of A Haunting.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about them both.
So I kind of want to talk about them both because I watched both of them yesterday.
Yeah, and I was watching this one. I don't really have much experience with haunted houses. Poltergeist, yes. I was in a bad house one time, but I never really, and I don't know, maybe one day I'll get around to telling that story. I was in a bad house one time with a friend of mine in the Army. We got out at the same time. We moved into it in Boston for different reasons. I had a girlfriend there at the time, and he was moving back. He'd lived there before, or, in the Boston area. It was a bad house, and that's the only way I can describe it. Bad feelings, bad dreams. Other people would come in there, and it had an eerie air to it, but I never could prove it.
Yeah.
Nothing ever moved.
Yeah, it was
nothing
just all
ever really.
Subjective
just feelings.
Yeah.
Well, if there are haunted houses, which I'm not going to discount them, if there are haunted houses, this might be one of them.
Yeah, I mean,
This might be one of them.
People have seen things in there over a very long period of time, even way before these people that were on the show moved in, because this house was built in the early.
If there are haunted houses, this is probably what's they're like.
And like I said, this is considered, most paranormal lists I looked at, is one of the top 10 most haunted houses in the United States.
Right.
It's in Arkansas, by the way.
It's kind of screwed up that I'm going, well, I believe in poltergeist, not necessarily ghost.
Well, they're two different phenomenon.
Two different things. And I tend to be naturally skeptical. If I haven't seen it myself, I don't believe it. Although I say that maybe there's a possibility.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not going to totally discount
Which is totally fair enough.
Just like I've never seen a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any Bigfoot in North America. But if there were, they'd be up in Washington State, maybe up in Canada. And if one was discovered, I go, well, yeah, plausible.
It wouldn't be a huge shock.
No, right.
Because it's just an animal, like I said.
Just an animal.
It's a big animal.
Yeah, all this stuff about spiritual Bigfoot, no. No.
Alien Bigfoot.
Elvis
Bigfoot.
Yeah, ghost Bigfoot. No. That's just, they're using those tales to explain away the lack of evidence. Like, well, it doesn't leave footprints because it's a spiritual being.
Well, plus they're kind of trying to sexy it up, I guess. To make it like paranormal Bigfoot.
No, if there's a Bigfoot, it's
it's an animal. That's why I think that's not one of the crazier.
Some kind of hominid.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Right.
All right. So for our news story, like I said, I always try to do, whether it's like a true crime show or whether it's a paranormal show, I always try to find a fairly recent news story that goes along with one of those themes.
Yes, we gotta do the news.
Yeah. So this was the only one I found that was.
Oh, didn't we have announcements to do though?
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. See, it's good that you're here.
We'll get to the news in a second.
All right. So, as I usually do, shout out for my book, The Faceless Villain. I actually recorded an interview with the show Mysterious Radio. So I'll let you guys know when that goes up, and it's all about Faceless Villain. I talked about a couple of the cases in there and, shot the shit about true crime in general.
Yeah. Faceless Villain selling like hotcakes. Same with Unseen Hand. Both of them are running wild.
Yeah.
Both those books doing good.
And like I said, I'm working on the second volume of Faceless Villain, which will be from 1960 to 1980. Unsolved crimes in there. All the shit's in there. Zodiac.
That will be out this year.
That will be out. It'll actually probably be out before summertime. That's what I'm shooting for. June the latest. Hopefully.
I promise you, people, I will be supervising the production of the book. It will be done.
He's going to be lurking over me like a vulture.
Like, Jenny, do the book.
Yeah. Working it. Yeah, so that'll be out soon. And also, would like to give shout outs to we have 2 new patrons.
Yeah.
One of them is named James, and one of them is named Matthew, all the way from Brisbane, Australia.
Yeah, that's the guys that are working on the line in that kitchen, right?
That's,
Those are the
I think
cooks,
so,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I talked to him on Facebook a lot.
Yeah, I was a cook too.
Yeah.
I used to work in country clubs.
And he got all of his coworkers into our show in
good.
Australia.
Good. We'll see what we can do. We're going to send him something special.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And we also got a PayPal donation from a person named Richard. So thank you very much. Right. Like I said, if you want to go to our Patreon page and give us a monthly donation, or you can go to our PayPal and give us a one-time donation. Do whatever you want. Or you don't have to do anything, but it'd be nice if you did something. Also, our last movie review was just me because Tom wasn't back yet. It was Suspiria. So if you're into Italian horror, go check that out if you haven't already. I know they're not quite as fun when you're not here.
Yeah, well.
But,
that's just how it rolls.
I did Mulholland Drive and I did Suspiria because I knew that you hadn't really seen those and you weren't like super into them. So I said, well, while you're not here, I'll just do them.
Well, I would only just be able to just do comments. Well, I guess I could have watched them.
Well, yeah, I have both.
But they wouldn't have been my favorite movies unless they were to somehow become my favorite movie watching it on the first time. But usually favorite movies tend to be like something I grew up with. Although, you know what? We just got a new copy of the Blade Runner. The new Blade Runner.
The new Blade Runner 2049.
I love that movie.
Oh my
I love
God.
that movie.
That was a masterpiece.
Yeah, man, that was so much better than the new Star Wars. God, I'm so mad at Disney. I'm terribly mad.
He still
at
has
Disney.
not gotten over that. He still hasn't gotten over it.
Outrageous.
But on a positive note, Blade Runner 2049 is excellent.
It made up for it.
It's excellent.
Some people will gripe, oh, the movie was too long. No, that's kids saying that. That movie takes its time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Which I like.
Like a G. It just takes its time.
I like
I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to let you see it.
Yeah.
But the visuals are really good. The storytelling's good. It's not a typical Hollywood movie.
It's really not.
You know, nowadays, but basically the movies are made for 15 and 16-year-olds. It's just kind of like a
lot
hollow
of your big blockbuster ones are.
Yeah, it's like hollow spectacles now, you know. But this one, actually, there's something to it, I thought.
Yeah, I liked this one a lot. All right, so I think that's all the regular shit we had to do. All right, so here's the only paranormal themed news story that I that was interesting that I could find in the last couple that came out in the last week. Now this one was from the UK. It turned up. It was in the Daily Mirror and a couple of the other papers over there, which I guess are kind of tabloids. So this happened in Kent. Now there's this fella named John Wicks, and he has a 12-year-old son named Harry. And evidently Harry is doing a project for school about castles and how they're built and stuff like that. So he's like, okay, well, we're going to go to Ainsford Castle in Kent, which is, it's not like it's ruins, but, it's really beautiful. There's pictures of it all over the internet. And he said, oh, we're going to go and we'll take pictures of it for your project. So evidently the dad takes pictures of Ainsford Castle, and he doesn't see anything when he takes the pictures. But when he gets home later and looks at the pictures, there is a little figure in there that looks like a monk.
Looks like a little Jawa.
It does kind of look like a Jawa.
Like a little Jawa, yes.
Yeah, it looks like the figure of like a black monk.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because actually in my book, The Unseen Hand, I talked about a case. I can't remember where it was offhand, but there was another haunting somewhere in England where they kept seeing a black monk. Is that a thing? I don't know. Like,
must be.
Like black monks in England. There seem to be a lot of those floating around.
It's like the black-eyed children. Maybe one person reports it and then somebody else.
And then everybody else does
starts reporting
So,
it.
okay. So there are pictures, and I will put them in the YouTube video, and you can see them if you search like Ainsford Castle haunting or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a pretty recent story. It just came out like a week ago. My first impression when I looked at the picture, I thought it looked like a hole in the wall.
Yeah, it does. It looks like
a little arch, like an entrance.
Yeah.
But evidently he says, the guy that took it, he's like, okay, I didn't notice anything when I took the picture. There's no doorway there. And he contacted a paranormal group or a paranormal investigator who went to investigate. He's like, yeah, you're right. There is no door there. There's no way. It doesn't look like a trick of the light or anything like that. It's pretty solid. Now, John says that in Kent, there is a legend about a black monk around that area. Yeah. So this is according to him. I couldn't find a great deal of other information about that. But evidently, there has been a black monk seen in this area before because the William D. Ainsford, who was keeping track, who lived in the castle in like 1130, like later became a monk or left to become a monk or something like that. That's how the story goes. So I guess there's kind of a legend around the area of a monk. But I don't really know. Like I said, I'll put the pictures in there. You can look at them if you want to. It does kind of it looks like a Jawa, like when you blow it up, because it looks like it has like the little thing across the,
Yeah, I'm not an expert, of course, in photography or photographic trickery. I'm not going to make my own judgment on it. I'm going to leave that up to the audience to do their own investigation.
It's a creepy looking picture.
I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that looks kind of like one of those little pop-up man targets at a pistol range.
It does kind of look like that, yeah.
Yeah, like you set that
because it looks like a solid thing.
It looks solid, but it looks kind of flat, and then it looks like maybe somebody draped a blanket over it.
Right.
A dark blanket. But I'm not saying that that's what it is. Just saying that's kind of what it looks to me.
Yeah.
But, worth looking into, I guess.
One of the funny things that the guy said in the article, this John Wicks guy, he's like, well, I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical about paranormal stuff. Although he said that he had a near-death experience. He had a motorcycle accident, just similar to what you had. And he died and was brought back to life. And he said when he died, he saw his grandfather. Yeah. And his grandfather told him he had to go back.
Yeah, it's weird, same kind of stuff.
So you had a similar thing happen.
Yeah, it wasn't grandfather.
Although it wasn't your grandfather, it was people you weren't really sure.
Yeah, a bunch of people that evidently I knew. Yeah. Somewhere in past lives, I guess.
Yeah.
I kind of described them to you before.
Yeah. But
one of them looked like a friend of ours.
Oh, yeah?
Well, yeah, but, it was kind of like prismatic light, and the face was kind of... I could see the face. It looked like some out of Lord of the Rings slightly. Kind of transracial, kind of a hood.
Yeah,
and,
like elvish.
Yeah, kind of.
Interesting.
But it looked like a human.
Right.
I think the elves look like humans.
Well, I was going to say, the elves,
like
so other than the pointy ears,
girl,
and they looked kind of...
Looked like some kind of girl in a hood. And she was sending me messages, but it was thought,
Yeah, like telepathic
messages. Imageries and stuff.
But the thing that made me laugh, this is what I was going to say. The thing that made me laugh, this guy is quoted in the article. He was like talking about, I was in the motorcycle accident. My grandfather told me to go back. And then the next quote, it's on its own paragraph. It might have been because I was on a lot of morphine. And I was like reading the article and I was just like, oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, but I told you who that looked like. What was that girl's name that we know?
Olivia?
Yeah. It looked like Olivia.
She is very elfin.
You ought to put a picture of Olivia up there. We'll get a picture of we've used her on some of our posters.
Yeah. I used her on a poster.
Yeah, it looked like Olivia.
Yeah, she is very elfin looking.
Yeah, because she's a little bitty thing.
That's very, that's very funny. But yeah, I had to mention that morphine thing because I just thought it was so funny that you've decided to put that in the article. So yeah, check the picture out. It's kind of interesting. Like I said, I thought it was a hole in the wall. They say it's not, but who knows?
It looks like a flat man target to me with a towel thrown over it or a blanket thrown over it.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
It's worth looking into. You gotta,
Yeah, I'm not going to call anybody.
That's the news. That's the news.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the episode of A Haunting that deals with the Allen house. Now, something that I found interesting, and when I was researching this, something that kind of confused me, because on the Wikipedia page for A Haunting, they have like an episode list, right?
Yeah.
Now, this episode is from season 5, and on Wikipedia, they have it mentioned as House of Horrors.
Yeah, you're telling me, look, it's in season 5, and I'm like, I don't know what it is.
And then like I looked it up and I looked on Daily Motion. They had it on Daily Motion and it's listed under House of Horrors. But we have the season 5 DVD set.
Yeah, I have it.
And it's not called that. It's called The Haunting of the Allen House.
Yeah. Oh, I made her so mad because I went and I ordered season 7 on DVD.
Of A Haunting.
And she said, you fucker.
That's not what I said. I said you suck.
Yeah, okay, you suck. Because she bought that for me for
He has already ruined both of his Valentine's Day presents.
I was bought both of them already.
You were going to buy the one, and then I was like, don't.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah. But it looks like season 7 is the last season of The Haunting that you can buy on hard copy. Everything else is streaming, and it's up to 11 now. And I would, I want to buy the other seasons because we don't have time to watch that when they want to show it to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we never watch like regular TV.
We never watch regular TV. I wanted to get them on DVD.
Yeah, they're good to have on.
One time I got cussed out by somebody in the comments section. Some girl, we don't buy DVDs, we stream it. Some 16-year-old girl yelled at me, what kind of show is this? I blocked her. Isn't that awesome when you block them?
What a weird
got mad at me.
thing to get upset about.
Yeah, man.
Why are these people so angry?
I don't know.
I don't understand why they're so angry.
The way I see it, when I have I kind of have pride and ownership in terms of like I have my own DVD, Blu-ray collection. It's like an archive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So whenever I want to see an episode, I'll physically go over there and grab it. There's just something I like about that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a generational thing.
Maybe. I kind of used to be like that with music. Like, I still have a shit ton of CDs and stuff like that. But really, the past few years, I've just been downloading everything from iTunes and shit. Because I'm running out of room, honestly.
I got that Xbox One, so I just like to put stuff in it.
Yeah.
He
likes to put stuff in the Xbox. That sounded kind of dirty. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So yeah, I was super confused why. So it's called House of Horrors when it first aired in 2012. On the disc, it's called The Haunting of the Allen House, but whatever. Yeah. It's the same episode.
Yeah, now, and it's one of the better episodes of that season.
I really like this. Yeah. Like, the people seem pretty credible.
Yeah.
Now, they've, like I said, not only were they on A Haunting, they did a Paranormal Witness episode. They were on a segment of Haunted Arkansas, which we also watched. It was about a 5-10 minute segment.
I got a feeling that they did A Haunting first.
Yeah, I think they did. I think previous to A Haunting, they'd only been on like local news shows.
Right.
After that, it was A Haunting, and then they did Paranormal Witness about a year later.
Yeah.
The guy's written a book, so, he might be wanting to sell the book. But, I try to sell my books too, so I'm not going to hate him for that.
I almost was on A Haunting. The audience, I don't know if they know that, but I was almost on it.
Yeah, they did. They did call and ask about it.
But what's funny is like the producer, it was like, well, you see, the thing is we're on Destination America. Wasn't it Destination America?
It's on Destination America, now.
There was, this isn't technically a ghost story. So I said, well, I can't change the story. Like, yeah, no, I want it in there, but it's not technically a ghost.
It doesn't go with their formula.
And I'm not going to go along with what they say. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I said, no, I'm not going to do it.
But they should have, because it would have been super creepy.
I could easily do paranormal witness, but the problem is that actually my best witness, my uncle, died.
Yeah.
Just a couple weeks ago now. I mean, I still got Lois, but Lois was mostly just keeping Wesley under control during the whole thing, you know, and trying to keep everybody safe. It was me and Red, we were the ones that were just trying to figure the thing out, man.
Yeah.
And it's sad to have lost him at the age of 61.
Yeah, it is very sad. But yeah, so...
And I didn't even get a recording of him talking about it.
I know.
Damn.
So, well, that's what you see.
I have to get
you always have to, like, appreciate people when they're alive. Yeah, because you never know when they're going to go.
Never know when they croak on you.
Yeah, I know. That's right.
You know, if they're going to croak sometimes, you know?
All right,
it's the way of the Force.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right, so this episode, House of Horrors, Haunting of the Allen House, whatever. Okay, so we're going to talk about the haunting episode, and then I want to talk a little bit about the Paranormal Witness one, because the Paranormal Witness one had a lot more good shit on it that, for some reason, the haunting episode didn't show.
Yeah. So, I like Paranormal Witness. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of the more recent ones. But okay, so...
Fireballs.
And here come the fireballs.
Here come the fireballs.
Oh man, I need to make like an audio meme of that. That was another one, because we say that all the time.
Yeah. If you don't know what that means, then you just don't know. Season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the house that we're talking about, the Allen house, was actually built in the early 1900s, and it was known as a haunted house previous to when this family moved in that the show was about, but they claim they did not know that at the time.
Right.
Because they were not from Arkansas. They were actually from Oklahoma. And the guy, Mark Spencer, he was like a professor or a dean or something like that. And he took a job at the University of Arkansas as like dean of students for arts and humanities or whatever. Yeah. And it was in Monticello, Arkansas. Now, evidently, his wife, Rebecca, she was not super jazzed about moving to Arkansas. Yeah. But when they were there, kind of when he went there for the interview and he took his family and stuff like that, and they saw this house sitting on this corner. And she's like, okay, well, I will move here on the condition that you buy me this house. Yeah. Now, it's not just a house. It's a mansion. It's 8,000 square feet. It's and 3 stories.
Unlike many of the episodes in A Haunting, the house in real life looks a lot more impressive than the one that they used in the episode.
It is a beautiful
The
house.
real life house looks really cool.
And from what I've read on the internet about this, because the Spencers who were on this show, they still live there, as far as I know. And I've heard that they have done wonders, like with renovating the place and stuff. I mean, even from the outside, and I've seen some pictures of the interior, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah. So evidently at the time that she saw the house, apparently it wasn't for sale. So they go to a realtor, they kind of go up to the house. I think the first time Mark goes up to the house and knocks on the door, and he thinks there's no one home, although he hears a radio coming from the inside, like playing some kind of like creepy fire and brimstone kind of holy rolling kind of shit like that.
Southern Baptist.
And he said, and that kind of wigged him out because he's like, man, who lives in there that's like listening to this? I don't know if I want to do this or not. And he said that when they first went up to it, it was kind of not in terrible shape, but they said it needed like a lot of work because the yard was real overgrown and shit like that. So he's like, there's no one home. And then he says to his wife, I don't know, it's kind of in bad shape. I don't know if I want to do it or anything like that. And then they go to a realtor, and the realtor is like, oh, well, that house isn't for sale. Everyone knows it's haunted. It's very well known in the area. And he's like, and the woman that lives there would never sell it anyway. So they kind of get bummed out and everything like that. And then later, Mark starts doing research and discovers, he's like, wow, this is like one of the most haunted houses in America, and, starts reading about the history of it and finds out about a woman that committed suicide there in 1948. Now, at the time, evidently, nobody knew why she had done it, and I'll get into that a little bit later because they did actually find out. And he says, now, in the middle of researching this house, he suddenly gets a phone call from the woman that lives there and says, oh, I heard that you wanted to buy it. I'll have to meet you and your wife and, we'll come and hang out and everything like that. So he's like, oh, all right. So him and his wife go to the house, and he's like this really, really nice old woman. He's like, now the outside looked kind of, needed work, but he's like, the inside was really beautiful. And an interesting thing is before they went and met the woman, they said they were walking by the house one night and they looked up and they saw a woman in the window. Like she was sitting at a desk, like writing a letter or something like that. And we're like, oh, let's keep going. We don't want people thinking that we're like stalking the house. Right. But then when they go and meet the old woman who lives in the house and she gives them a tour and she shows them the room where that window would have opened from. It's all like junked up with furniture.
Yeah.
Like, and there's no way that anybody could be sitting at the window. And the guy's like, oh, well, I saw you sitting in the window the other night when we walked by. And she's like, oh, I haven't been here. I've been out of town. And she's like, and nobody's been in this room for like 30 something years.
Right.
Like, we just pushed all this furniture in here because no one uses
So
it.
you saw an apparition at the windshield.
So they saw
That's
someone.
the first thing you saw.
Yeah. So that was the first thing he saw. And that was before they even moved in.
Okay.
Now, at this stage, the old woman is actually very friendly, and she's like, I never really thought I would sell this house because I love it and everything. And she said, no, it is haunted. Obviously Mark and Rebecca are like, yeah, we don't believe in that stuff. She's like, oh, but yeah. But she's like, I think that you guys are supposed to own it, so I'm going to sell it to you.
Yeah,
so,
she thought that God had sent them.
Yeah.
That they were the right kind of people to own the house.
Right. So they thought it was some kind of kismet just because, like I said, when Rebecca first got to Arkansas and she saw that house, she's like, I want that house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they thought it was some kind of destiny or fate that they were supposed to end up there.
Yeah.
So they eventually end up buying the house. Now, on the haunting episode, they have a bunch of kids, I think 3, but they never really went into that. They interviewed one of the daughters on Paranormal Witness, but they didn't have any of the kids on there. But apparently some of the kids saw some shit too, but I'll get into that later. So the first thing that happens on the episode of a haunting, the first thing that's creepy, because really the first 10, 15 minutes of it are the whole before they even move into the house.
Right.
So they move in and they start working on it and renovating it. Now, the first thing is that Mark goes up to the attic to get something or other because they're working on the house. And he says he feels like he's being watched.
Yeah.
Like very, very strongly.
Yeah, and I remember this scene. It kind of reminds me of not only the poltergeist experience I went to, that feeling of being watched, which I don't know how a human being feels like they're being watched. I mean, what mechanism does this? I don't know. Some people have said that there might be some kind of a quantum effect going on that you can predict, or that there's a statistical thing that you can use to find out when somebody feels like they're being watched.
Yeah.
One time I saw a program about the security business, and they were teaching security guards who watched cameras, watching for shoplifters. Mm-hmm. The guys that were running the program were saying, don't watch too closely, or the person that you're looking at on the camera can feel it like they're being watched. And evidently there's like some statistical data that can back this up.
Well, they have done lab tests where most of the time, people can tell they're being looked at.
It's weird.
Which is pretty freaky.
So it must be something to do with quantum physics. So in some ways, if a ghost is looking at you, the quantum effect happens and you can feel it.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I felt it. I felt it during the poltergeist.
But he said
and then at that bad house that I talked about earlier, everybody kind of had that feeling of being watched.
Like someone was watching.
And you could kind of feel from what direction you were being looked at from. Yeah. But there was nothing there.
Yeah.
It was weird.
And that's the same thing. It seemed like that's the same thing, because I've seen several shows that this guy is on, so I could kind of, get a picture of what happened in the house. And he said in the attic you felt very strongly as though you were being watched, not necessarily malevolent. Right. He's like, you just felt like you were being watched. Now, he said on the floor he found a photograph of a baby. Like you can only see its arm. And he looked on the back, and there's a name on the back of it.
Miss Liddell.
Miss Liddell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they knew that was the name of the woman that had committed suicide in the house. But he's like, why would anybody rip a picture of a baby in half? That
he was kind of mystified by it.
Yeah, he was a little weirded out. And then he said that he glanced up and saw a shadow on the wall. Yeah. And at first he thought it was his shadow. He's like, oh, that's interesting. How that and then he starts moving his hand, and the shadow on the wall doesn't move.
And then he's shining flashlights on it to try to get that play of light. Yeah. And the shadow is consistent.
It just stays there like a shadow of a person.
In the episode of The Haunting, he actually casts the beam of the flashlight onto the shadow itself, and it doesn't dissipate. Yeah. It lightens a little bit, but the shadow does not totally go away. Yeah. Which that's not possible. Right. That's just not possible. But that's what they show. Now here's the thing. They don't show him saying that he did that. They just show his character doing that. Yeah. So we don't know if that's what he told The Haunting, or if that's just what The Haunting wanted to play with us.
Now, Paranormal Witness had this incident. It actually had it happen at a different time in the timeline, and it was similar, but a little bit different. But
how was it portrayed then?
It was actually portrayed as if he had seen it on the floor. Okay. But I think he did say on Paranormal Witness that he saw the shadow on the floor, and he thought it was his, and it didn't.
And did he shine the flashlight on it?
He didn't really say that. I don't think.
And they didn't show that
Not that I remember.
Okay.
But it was on the floor and shit like that.
This would probably be a good time to take a break.
Oh, okay. So we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back. We'll talk about the rest of the haunting episode, and then I want to get into some of the stuff that was on Paranormal Witness and what the differences were and stuff like that. So we will be back in just a few minutes. Okay, we're back talking about a haunting, the haunting at the Allen house.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that happens on a haunting was that the wife, Rebecca, she's home by herself one day, and she hears very clearly, she says, someone walking around in the attic. She said it was very heavy footfalls, very obviously footfalls. Now, the thing was, even though she and Mark at this point knew that the house was known for being haunted, she did not presume that it was a ghost. She thought it was a person that had broken into the house.
Now, the woman that owned the house before them, when she was getting ready to sell this house to the new couple, she's telling them, oh, I hear it talking all the time, and the ghosts are talking. I had the house exorcised. It's not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
And the husband's like, yeah, okay, sure.
Whatever.
He was just trying to be polite. He didn't believe that it was real.
Yeah,
but now they're starting to see things and hear footsteps.
Yeah, so she hears footsteps. Now, she thinks it's a person. So basically, she runs down the hall, closes the attic door, and rams a chair up against it.
Okay.
And then she calls the husband, and she's like, hey, somebody's in the house. But when they go up there and investigate, there's no one up there. And this is another very common thing. They always hear footsteps. The attic seems to be the focal point of the disturbances.
Yeah.
Now, up to this stage, because the Allen house was so popular in the neighborhood, and I guess it kind of got around that some new people had bought it, they're like, we would just get random ass people come into the house wanting to come inside because it's like the famous haunted house, right? And Rebecca at first is just like, I don't want all these like strangers, like especially teenagers and stuff, like trooping around my house. We live here, you know what I mean? But then, she's like, we were doing all the renovations and it was really expensive. I mean, it's a giant house.
Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, well, Halloween's coming up. Mm-hmm. Why don't we open the house up for Halloween and like charge people $5 and give them a tour and stuff like that?
Yeah. Based on the data, they scored $3,000 their first.
Yeah. Because Mark Spencer's on there saying, I thought maybe 50 people would show up. He's like 600 people showed up to tour the house. Right. Now they had hired a couple local students to come and give a tour through the house. And so during one of the tour groups, they have one of the students there. They interviewed him on the show, the one that did this particular tour group. Now, he's in the bedroom where Liddell killed herself, and he's kind of telling the people the story. And all of a sudden, evidently, the closet door flies open and a shirt flies out of it.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool moment in the haunting episode when that shirt goes out. But I watched that happen and I was going, boy, it's a lot like Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, even though the episode of A Haunting focused a lot more on the apparitions and the finding out of the history about the house and stuff, The paranormal witness one had a lot more like poltergeist type activity that they didn't really go into on a haunting, which I thought was interesting.
Typically, hauntings don't involve movement of objects. Yeah. Just apparitions.
But
voices.
there was more of that than they said.
So that's I guess you could probably say that kind of an unusually strong ghost, if that's what you want to call it. Kind of a strong haunting, one that can actually move objects. Pretty weird. Yeah,
so evidently this shirt flies out of the closet.
Yeah.
Now, one of the guys on the tour, he's like, oh, you guys rigged it, good trick, and all this other kind of stuff. And then the student is like, no, we didn't do that, go check. So the guy goes and looks in the closet, there's nothing in there.
No strings, no thread. Yeah.
Now, evidently, one of the older women that was on the tour, too, now she said that she saw a spirit, that it was Liddell.
Okay.
Because it's like a woman that in that type of period of clothing. Yeah.
She saw it up at the top of stairs, I think.
Yeah, or she was leaving the room and she turned around and saw her in the
And she's like
doorway.
thanking him, thank you so much. And all that.
Like she seemed freaked out at first, but then when she talked to Mark when she was leaving, she's like, thank you so much for opening your house. I saw her and she was all excited about it and stuff like that.
She said, I will never forget that as long as I live.
So apparently that was a cool experience for her. Now the next thing that happened, the next paranormal thing that happened on the episode, now they show Rebecca and she's in the living room vacuuming. Now they had an old-timey record player, Victrola, one of the ones that you have to crank to get it to work. And evidently while she's vacuuming, she hears a record on there start to play. And she's like, now no one's been in this room. You have to crank it to get it to go. So she goes over there and she picks up the needle and puts the needle back down and the record just stops. Right. She's like, now that shouldn't happen because if someone had cranked it,
it would still have enough energy.
Then it would still have enough energy. It would just wind down. She's like, but it didn't do that. It just stopped all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now, on some other things that I've seen her on, and I noticed too on the haunting episode, she never said she heard music playing.
Right. Just saw it.
She saw it spinning. Right. And she said it spun faster and faster
the longer
and
you
faster
looked at it.
The longer you looked at it.
Yeah.
Now, on Paranormal Witness, also, Mark's daughter Bronte was also in the room and saw it also.
Yeah. Weird.
So, they didn't show that on a haunting. They just showed Rebecca in there by herself. But she, so she puts the needle back. It stops all of a sudden. She's like, whoa, that's really weird.
Yeah.
And then she goes upstairs to tell Mark about it. And while she's in the hallway, she also sees the ghost.
Okay.
Right? Of Liddell. So she says.
How did she describe it?
It was weird because she kind of, like on the later shows, she actually saw some other apparitions too, not just her. But she said she saw the woman and she said for 5 or 6 seconds she saw her and she said that on the show it almost looked like it jumped forward and attacked her. I didn't really get that impression. She said it was terrifying. But she didn't...
Oh, that's a scene where it's standing there and then like an image pops out at her and she crumples into the
ground like she's hurt.
Right.
But she didn't really say it that way. Right. She said it was terrifying, but she more got the idea that the ghost was trying to tell her something or was trying to get her attention, not that she was trying to attack her or anything necessarily. So that was the next thing that happened there. And then they decide they're going to call a paranormal group to come investigate finally, after all these people have seen this stuff. So they call this group called Louisiana Spirits, and it's led by this woman named Bess Maxwell. Now they come to the house, and Mark and Rebecca are going to go out. They send the kids to a friend's house and they said, okay, well, we're going to go out. Now, Rebecca says, before we even went out and left the paranormal team there, we felt like we shouldn't go. Okay. Like we had this really bad feeling. Now, while they're getting ready to leave, Mark said he started feeling really weird. They show him like walking down the stairs and he like stumbles and stuff. He said he just felt really dizzy and really strange. And he's like the energy, like it's really weird, like oppressive kind of energy, almost like it was telling them not to go. But they did go. So they leave the paranormal team there. On the show, it's Bess Maxwell and it was like 2 other women. So they're starting to set up all their equipment. And then there were a couple things on a haunting, they sort of put together like all the, because this team I think actually came back 2 or 3 times. Okay. Because this first investigation had to be abandoned because what ended up happening, Bess is up in the attic and she has her little EMF meter. And her EMF meter goes haywire, and then she hears a voice saying Liddell. Like she hears a woman's voice. So she hears that in the attic. Meanwhile, there's another woman down in the parlor or something like that, it looks like, and she's setting up a camera, and she hears a woman singing, like a record. Okay. Now, right after that happened, they said they were just getting ready to start the investigation, turn all their recorders on and stuff like that. All of a sudden, there was a huge flash. They said it looked like lightning outside the house.
I remember this part, yeah.
And all of the power went out, except for the audio recorders. The audio recorders are still on, but everything else went out. one of them says, oh, well, I saw sparks. It was probably a transformer. But they look out the window and all the neighbors still have power across the street next door. Everybody still has power, everybody but them. So they call Mark and Rebecca, who haven't gone that far. They're only just right down the block or whatever because they just left. And said, come back to the house. You got to see this. So they come back. Now they go out to the backyard. And it turns out that this really big leafy branch has come off a tree and pulled the power cord out of the power line out of the side of the house. Right. Which could be a coincidence. I don't know. Mark is like, I don't know. This is a healthy tree. It wasn't storming. It was like a total. Yeah, it was a healthy limb that broke. It was a healthy limb, like a big healthy limb. Yeah, and the woman who was leading the paranormal investigations, she said that she didn't believe in coincidences. Yeah, she just said she thought it a little like this, odd that as soon as we were going to start the investigation, that shit happened and we had to leave because all the power was out. Right. Now, later on, I guess, like I said, since the audio recorders were still going, they did get some EVPs the first time. And they did get some later. I don't think they played any on that show. There's some on YouTube that people have got. They're not super impressive. Right. So she plays, Bess Maxwell plays the EVP that she got. She got like 40, she says. Okay. But the one they played on the show, it's not the real one. But when the investigator said, oh, it must be a transformer, there's a woman's voice saying, not a transformer. Yeah. So Bess is like freaking out because she's like, well, this is like an intelligent haunting. It's like talking. It was more than one voice, actually. It's one thing I don't like about haunting episodes. They never actually show the evidence. Yeah, they never show you the actual paranormal witness will sometimes. Yeah. But not. Well, that's the whole point of paranormal witness. They're going to show you basically what's happening at this point is that in this case, once the paranormal investigators show up, you're mostly getting EVPs. Yeah. That's basically what you're getting, which is not quite as impressive as the people actually seeing apparitions. But, that's just how the case goes. I guess it's easier to get an EVP than it is to see an apparition. Apparitions are more rare. But evidently, like I said, a lot of people have seen apparitions in this particular house. Yeah. So the next thing that happens, and this is kind of getting toward the end of the episode, Mark says that it's a Saturday morning. He suddenly wakes up with a compulsion that he has to go up to the attic. He doesn't know why or anything like that. So he's like, well, okay. So I go up to the attic. And the way they show it on the show was that he goes up there and he has like a weird feeling. And then there's like a light shining from like behind these wall panels or whatever. Yeah. And he pulls them off and he finds a big envelope that has a bunch of letters in it. Right. And he takes all the letters out and he reads them all. And I think in one program I saw he actually found them in the floorboards. And actually, I've seen photos of the actual thing that he took. Yeah. It was the floor. Okay. It wasn't behind a wall. All right. And actually, Paranormal Witness got that right. Okay. They showed it on the floor. But on a haunting, it's close enough. Whatever, wall floor. Yeah. So he pulls the boards out, and there's all these letters in there. And there's 82 letters. They're all addressed to Liddell Allen Bonner. Turns out that they are love letters from a man named Prentice Savage who lived in Minneapolis. Yeah. Now, apparently these two had dated when they were teenagers, but then he moved away. Then they married other people. Now, Liddell, she had a son, but she ended up getting divorced. Her husband's name was Boyd, I think. She got divorced in 1917, I want to say. And Prentice Savage, he married someone else too. I don't know what his wife's name was. He was like the vice president of Texaco. He was like some big muckety-muck. Yeah, Texaco Oil was pretty big back then. Yeah. But he evidently came back to Arkansas and him and Liddell started an affair. Right. Even though he was still married. She wasn't. She was divorced. And in these letters, it seems that he's saying he's going to leave his wife and we're going to be together forever and blah, blah, blah. And she's like all happy about it. The letters spanned, like 7 months, like the 7 months before she died. But after around October of 1948, the letters started getting more distant. He started saying stuff like he doesn't think he's going to be able to leave his wife. It's going to be a big scandal. He can't take it, blah, blah, blah. But in the letters, he did say that they would be together at Christmas time. So evidently what happened, they're thinking, because like I said, nobody knew why Liddell had killed herself. She drank mercury cyanide on Christmas night. Damn. She actually didn't die right away. She was in a coma for about a week and then she died later on. So what they think happened is that her mom would always have a big Christmas party at Allen House. So evidently Liddell was at this party and she was waiting because she thought that Prentice would show up and he didn't show up. Right. She got stood up. So she evidently went up in her room. She got a cup of punch.
Yeah.
Put mercury cyanide in it and drank it.
Damn.
And just laid down in her bed and died. So Mark Spencer and Rebecca Spencer are very convinced, and they say, like I said, that they were skeptics before this, but they are convinced that Liddell wanted them to find these letters. They're like, because we wouldn't have found them otherwise. They were hidden. They were like under a floorboard. He thinks that she wanted everybody to know why she had done it because nobody knew for a long time. So he actually later ended up writing a book called A Haunted Love Story, and it was all about her. Now, the interesting thing, and I'm going to go a little bit into the paranormal witness episode, and then, maybe a little bit into the history of the house, like what some other people have seen there. Something I found interesting on the paranormal witness episode, like I said, there was a lot more poltergeist type activity. Okay. And they also interviewed Mark's daughter, Bronte, who they didn't interview on this. Right. They didn't really get any of the kids in on the
I saw the haunting
episode.
And I saw some of the stuff I saw the haunting episode. I saw a few things online, but I had not seen the paranormal witness.
You did see it, but we saw it like a long time ago.
A long time ago? Okay, I just don't remember it.
I watched it yesterday.
Okay.
So it's pretty fresh in my mind.
Which one do you think was better?
I liked the paranormal witness one better.
Okay.
Just because it seemed more substantive.
Okay.
On the paranormal witness, they take out that whole part at the beginning with the old woman and selling them the house and everything. Right. Like, really, in paranormal witness, they get to Arkansas, they see the house, it has a for sale sign in the front, and they just buy it. There's no thing about that woman living there and selling it to them and stuff like that. So none of that is there. Another thing that they put in the paranormal witness episode, and this was actually kind of interesting. So evidently Rebecca is out working in the yard. She's got her little headphones on or whatever. And the dad and the two sons are messing around out in the yard with their metal detector. He said, because that was something we did as a hobby, Now they find the metal detector goes off and they dig in there and they find a penny from 1948, a pillbox, and a lipstick case. Now, as soon as they find this, Rebecca says that she's listened to her headphones. She's like, the music cut out, and then someone, like a voice, came over her headphones saying her name. Weird. And then she looked up at the house and saw a woman in the upstairs window in the bedroom where Liddell committed suicide. Weird. And she looked and she saw it. Right. And then the music came back on all of a sudden. But she said the music cut out and she heard someone say Rebecca very clearly into her headphones. Okay. So that was something they didn't put on a haunting. Now, there was some other shit too with other witnesses, and they didn't do any of this on a haunting either. Okay. So Rebecca has a friend. Could it be that this
stuff happened after the haunting episode was
Well, there wasn't much.
Or maybe they just edited it out.
Yeah, they maybe just edited it out. There wasn't much time in between when the two. It was only like less than a year apart, really. Okay. All right. So Rebecca had a friend named Destiny, and Rebecca and Mark were having a yard sale, and Destiny was bringing some stuff over so she could sell stuff at the yard sale. Now, Destiny, she saw someone in the upstairs window. Now, she thought it was Rebecca. She said it looked like Rebecca. But then she comes to the door and Rebecca's at the door. Okay. So she's like, I just saw you in the upstairs window. She's like, I haven't been upstairs. What are you talking about? And then she's carrying her stuff into the house, and she sees a woman standing in the parlor or the library or something like that. And she thought that was Rebecca. And she said, hey, why don't you come help me, get the boxes out of the car? And she says, and Rebecca, who she thought it was, just ignored her. And she was like, man, bitch, whatever. She didn't say that, but that was kind of the implication.
She should have said that. Man, bitch.
Bitch, get your lazy ass out of here. But yeah, so she thought it was Rebecca, and then the woman turned toward her and her face was kind of all messed up. Huh. But the interesting thing is that, and I've seen some other stuff about this house that's been on other sites saying, yeah, they saw doppelgangers. People saw someone they thought was Rebecca.
But it wasn't.
Now,
instead of her face messed up, what exactly are they talking
about? Well, on the show, they showed half of her face, it was cut and kind of rotted.
Okay.
I don't know if the girl actually saw that. I don't think she said that specifically. Right. But she said when the woman turned toward her, she saw that it wasn't Rebecca.
I think one of the weirdest stories about this house that I'd heard is, what was the husband's name again? I forgot. Mark sees a woman staring out the window, but the shades are closed. Just like a person with their face in the shades.
Looking at the curtains. Yeah.
And he walks up to it and he said, that's a ghost.
Yeah.
And he walks up to it and and he's going, hello, miss, something like that.
Well, he thought it was his wife.
Oh, it did? Okay, That's not how I remembered it. All right. And then he goes, hello, hello. And he expected her to turn around, but she didn't. She just vanished when he got about 3 feet from her.
Yeah. He thought it was his wife. And I should note on a haunting, too, that when he was reading the letters up in the attic, he says he looked up and he saw a woman. And that they knew what Liddell looked like because they'd seen a picture of her. Yeah. And he said, I saw a woman that looked like Liddell, and she was standing there looking at me. He's like, but then when I looked at it again, it was Rebecca. It was his wife. Now, there was another thing. He kind of described it better because, like I said, they were on Haunted Arkansas, like on a section of it, and he was on there talking, and he kind of went a little bit more into that. He actually said that Liddell, the ghost of Liddell, walked toward him, and he saw her very clearly, but then he's like, then I looked again, and she was back by the door, and it was Rebecca.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he didn't really say that on Haunting, but he said that on Haunted Arkansas. So he kind of specified
over the years. I've run into many cases where there's doppelgangers or ghosts or poltergeists that could mimic a family member's voice. They could hear him from, he call him from across the house.
Yeah.
What are you calling me for? Oh, I didn't call you. That kind of stuff.
But this was,
weird.
This was something that...
Weird phenomenon.
Yeah, Mark said that he saw Liddell and Rebecca kind of morphing into one another. Okay. And her friend Destiny said she definitely saw something that she thought was Rebecca. She said it looked like Rebecca, but it couldn't have been Rebecca because Rebecca wasn't in that part of the house or whatever. Now, there were a couple other things that were on Paranormal Witness. Now, here was another thing that was kind of like more poltergeist activity. Mark said for 1 week straight, every morning when he came down to the kitchen to make coffee or whatever, there would be a broken glass on the counter.
Wow, okay.
And the cabinet was always closed. Nothing else was disturbed. Yeah. But there would always be a glass broken on the...
Yeah, and it was like the same one over and over again?
It was the same type of glass. He's like, they showed on the show, they said, we had just all these glasses like in a row in the cabinet. The cabinet door was closed.
Yeah, it's like something a poltergeist would do.
Yeah, so it was always broken. Now, on the show, he didn't really say this specifically, but the show made the association, maybe that was the cabinet that had the punch glass that Liddell took out to put the punch in that she killed herself. But, he didn't make that association.
Right,
But the
I think
show
you're reading
did.
too much into it.
Yeah, they might. But he said, for a week we found a broken glass on the counter every single morning. The daughter, Bronte, she also reported hearing footsteps walking around outside her room and the sound of ice clinking in a glass when no one was out there.
Walking around with that iced tea.
Yeah, I guess so. Also, she said the fan in her room, she watched it. She's like, it started to speed up, and then she saw that there were buttons on the post of it. Yeah. And she said she saw them going in and out, like someone was pushing them. That's a good one, yeah. And she's like, finally, it speeded up so much that it kind of blew up or it sparked out, and they didn't put that on the show. Now, there was another friend who was interviewed on Paranormal Witness. Her name was Reagan, and she was actually house sitting for them, watching their animals and stuff like that while they were on vacation. And she went up to the attic because Rebecca called her and said it was storming, and she's like, can you go up there and make sure, because we have buckets, the roof's leaking and stuff, just make sure the buckets haven't overflowed. So she goes up to the attic, and while she's up there, she puts a chair underneath the door, like, so it doesn't close on her. Yeah, so it doesn't close on her. But while she's in there, the door closes on her. Okay. And she's wigging out, freaking out. She goes back down, and the door is closed, and the chair is down the hall. Weird. As if someone has picked it up and flung it.
But she didn't hear anything?
No.
Okay. Weird.
Not that I, but she freaked out, and she's like, all right, fuck that. And she's like, I'm out of here. So she kind of ran away from the house. Also, another thing they didn't mention on a haunting was that the paranormal investigators, before the power went out on their first investigation, they said they actually smelled cigar smoke. Okay. Rebecca also reported smelling cigar smoke. There have been several other paranormal investigative teams in there, and they've also reported the same thing. They actually say that Liddell is not the only spirit that's there, that there's actually 6. Yeah. And people have seen apparitions of children also. Right. Now, on Paranormal Witness, Rebecca said that she saw an apparition of a man in a cowboy hat on the stairs. And this was right around the time, because like I said, they changed the timeline on Paranormal Witness around a little bit. What they had happen here was that Mark was up in the attic finding the letters, and he found the letters because of the shadow on the floor. Yeah. They didn't show that on a haunting. They showed that as like the first thing that happened. But Paranormal Witness, they showed there was a shadow on the floorboard, and he pulled up the floorboard, and that's where the letters were. Meanwhile, Rebecca was downstairs and sees an apparition of a man, and she said it was very scary, with a cowboy hat. So people have seen other apparitions other than Liddell.
Yeah, look, I'm just gonna come out and say this. Ghosts are rare. If there are ghosts are very rare. So that means finding one of them is difficult. Yeah. 6 of them? No, I don't believe it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's what some of the
I've always noticed that the more paranormal investigators you bring onto a case, the more the number of ghosts increases. I believe there's something to this haunting. I'd really like to see it myself, but I think there's something to this case. Guarantee it's just one ghost. If there's a ghost, it's just one. Because that ghost can mimic and manifest itself any way it wants to.
It does seem like most of the stuff that's been heard, because here's the thing. The house...
Like, for instance, the guy with the hat, stuff, how do you know that wasn't Liddell's boyfriend?
That's what they implied.
Maybe the ghost of Liddell is thinking about the boyfriend. Yeah. The boyfriend. That's what they image of the boyfriend. That's what they implied on Paranormal Witness.
That's who she had seen. She didn't say it was like malevolent or anything. She just said it was scary looking. So it was like a black figure. Yeah, and a couple other people have reported seeing little kids or hearing little kids' voices like on EVP. Right. Now,
how do you know that that's not the imaginary offspring of her and this guy? She's imagining as a ghost. Yeah. She's a ghost in the afterworld, imagining having kids with the guy, and those are just the
the
like
children.
Dream-like
ghosts of ghosts.
Yeah. The dreams of ghosts. In a big way to put it.
But yeah, so I should note, like I said, the house was built in 1906 by the Allen family. That's why it's called the Allen House. Liddell was one of Joe Allen's daughters, the middle daughter. That was the guy that built the house. It was actually in the Allen family for a very long time. In the 50s, late 50s, I think it was 1959, it was still owned by the Allen family, but they sectioned it off into apartments. So there were actually a lot of renters that lived there. And over the years, many renters have seen apparitions, heard footsteps. That's pretty much the most common thing. Smelled cigar smoke, stuff like that. And pretty much, I think in the 80s, it was converted back into a private residence. And then there were a couple residents there. And then the Spencers bought it in 2007. And as far as I know, they still live there. Okay. And as I said, from other paranormal sites that I've looked at and everything, they said they've done a beautiful job restoring. I mean, the outside of it, for real, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous house. It's enormous. Now, they do tours. They do a big thing on Halloween. They've been doing that every year. They do tours, but you have to get an appointment, obviously, because they live there. And I'm sure they don't want people trooping through their house at all hours. But you can still do it. And it's been investigated by Taps. It was actually, there was an episode of Ghost Hunters set in there. I haven't seen it. Ghost Brothers, they went there. But, there's been tons of other investigations about it. And it's been on the local news and everything like that. So it was a very famous haunted house. And like I said, Mark Spencer wrote a book about, it wasn't so much about the haunting per se. I think it was mostly about Liddell and her history and how he discovered the letters. So.
Might be a good book.
It might be, yeah. I actually wouldn't mind reading. He seems like a nice dude. I mean, that seems like a nice family. It really does. So. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I've never been there.
If you're interested in the case, I'd recommend getting that book.
Yeah, I would too. Sure. And like I said, Paranormal Witness, A Haunting, they both did it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I didn't see the Ghost Hunters because I don't usually watch that, but but they went there too. I don't know if they really captured anything. And actually, if you search Allen House on YouTube,
I think I like Ghost Brothers better than Ghost Hunters.
Ghost Brothers is very entertaining.
At least Ghost Brothers is hilarious.
It's very entertaining. Yeah. Well, they're very aware of how funny they are, and how funny the whole situation is. So it's a little tongue in cheek. They're kind of serious, but it's still kind of tongue in cheek.
I recommend Ghost Brothers.
I really do like Ghost Brothers. It's very funny. Yeah. But okay. So wow, we went on and on, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I guess we're getting to the end of the show. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It was another paranormal extravaganza.
Yeah, it was good to be back on the show.
I know. I missed you so much. Seriously.
Missed you too.
Aw, I did. The kitty also missed you.
I know. It's funny. I came back and that cat was sitting on the back of the couch and saw me and was like, "What?" And just started looking back and forth between you and my mom. Who is that?
Yeah, she was like shocked.
You could see the whites of her eyes.
Yeah.
And then she would, "Come on, chase me." I chased her.
She runs up in her, she likes to go up in the top of her tree and and if you poke the outside of the we call them little apartments.
Yeah, like little apartments that go up.
Yeah, and you poke the outside so she can claw at it. That's like her favorite game.
She wanted to play
that and throwing her little chicken.
Yeah, and then 10 minutes later she goes, "I remember this guy. Yeah. I remember, He does this for me and he does that for me. Yeah, I remember that.
He throws my chicken.
Yeah.
So I can jump up.
I gotta get video of her throwing that toy chicken.
You guys, I don't know, I've had a lot of cats throughout my life, but I've never seen one that could throw her own toys.
One-handed.
Like she
grab it and
she fetches like a puppy.
Yeah.
She's probably about 6 months old now, right? Yeah, she will pick up, she has this chicken, a little stuffed chicken that's one of her favorite things to tear up. And she will pick it up in one paw and sling it far.
And she stands up to throw it.
Yeah, she'll stand up and
throw it. On her back legs to throw it and then run after it.
And then runs after it. Because she figures if Daddy's not here to throw it, I'm going to throw it.
Yeah, she's awesome.
It's very funny. Yeah, she's a very,
and she can catch too.
Yeah, she's a good catch.
Throw it right at her and she'll catch it.
And then she'll bring it back up on the bed, like, throw it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very funny.
Like a dog.
Yeah, she's very, and well, she had her little tail was bit off by a dog when she was a baby.
Yeah.
Before we got her.
Yeah, she doesn't even remember
She doesn't remember it. So she only has like a little stump of a tail.
Yeah, it's like 3 inches long.
And so she just like wags it. She's always like
Wags it
wagging
like a little dog.
like a little puppy. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen. But anyway, so okay, that's the end of the show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Very happy that Tom is back. Remember, if you are into true crime or anything, please check out my book, Faceless Villain. If you've read The Faceless Villain and you haven't left a review, please do that.
Yeah, that book is kicking ass.
Yeah.
People like that book.
And like I said, volume 2 will be out probably before summer. I'm working on it very hard, I promise. Also, if you'd like to support the show, don't forget to go check out our Patreon page. This is patreon.com/13o'clock podcast. If you don't like Patreon, but would still like to help out the show, then you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com. And there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. If you'd like to give a one-time donation, you may do so. Also, check out our latest movie review. Actually, it's just my review of Suspiria that came out on Friday. If you haven't checked it out, we will be doing another movie review probably this Friday. I don't know what movie we're doing yet, though, but it'll be something good, I promise. And that'll do it for episode 76. See you next Tuesday. Bye.
If I walk